Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discussing Diabetes Basics, where we're focusing on the basics of how to manage diabetes. Today, I'm so excited to have two special guests, and our topic is how to treat hypoglycemia.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eritrea Musa Khan. I am an application trainer here in Dallas, Texas, and content creator for Diabetics Doing Things. 28 years old, and I've had diabetes for 19 years.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel. I'm based in the UK. I live just outside of London. I've been living with type 1 diabetes for 24 years. I am the host of the At Talking Type 1 podcast. And in my professional life, I'm a HR and volunteer manager.
I think when you're first diagnosed with diabetes, you're told to be aware of is hypoglycemia. And people often call these hypos. And so throughout our talk, you may hear them mentioned, intertwined, low, hypoglycemia, this kind of thing. So let's get started. Tell me what you heard or were told about hypos when you were first diagnosed with diabetes, and how did you feel about hearing that information?
So I was diagnosed really young. I think that the explanation was given to my parents. I was 8. So I think the way that they explained hypos and low blood sugar was that we would have to consistently always test my blood sugar every couple of hours, even if I didn't feel low, if I felt fine, just to make sure there was no hypos because they could be really dangerous. I think also when you're small, the way they explain it to your parents is in terms of almost mortality, like the realness behind hypoglycemia. So I think that there was a real fear there for my family.
So I was diagnosed when I was 10, and I don't remember the what happened was I was feeling, and I guess the way to describe it in modern times is, when your phone vibrates. I had this vibrating feeling over my body, and I think this was a day or two after I was diagnosed and I was in the hospital, and I said I'm feeling this way, and then the nurse said, "Oh, you're having a hypo," and that's how I learned what a hypo was in terms of um, low blood sugar, and that's how it was explained to me by experiencing a hypo.
I read in a pamphlet, oh, you should use juice, but in a real world experience, how do you treat hypos?
It really depends on where I am. When I get my low blood sugar, if I'm at home, I keep juice at home at all times. My husband does a really good job of restocking it, so I don't even have to think about it. We have little bottles of the Mott apple juice, or then we have the 100% big bottles. I carry the little bottles around in my backpack. So I do keep a backpack on me if I go to like the gym or if I go to work. I have like my emergency diabetes supply backpack. Um, if I'm at a workout and I'm like hungry and I don't want to drink juice, because sometimes when you're walking, running, it's hard to take in those liquids. I'll do like a mini protein bar. These RX ones are pretty good. They're mini RX bars. They have 12 carbs in a small one, so they're not very big. They're about like 3 ounces. I think that's a good thing to be able to get down quickly. So I just try to always be prepared. In my office as well, before COVID, when we were still working in the office, I had candy in my cubicle, and I just had like a designated diabetes drawer where it's like candy, snacks, extra food, oatmeal. You never know when you forget a meal. So I think that the expression, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, really applies with hypoglycemia.
And so for me, I tend to have, it depends, because sometimes I have hypos where I can drink. Sometimes I have hypos that I need to treat where I can't drink and I need to eat. So I've got apple juice. I've also got a shot of glucose from a company called Lift. So that's only like 60 millimeters. So it's quite small, but it's 15 grams of glucose. So you're guaranteed to get what you need to treat the hypo. And then there are times when I've got like sweets as well, but then I might just have 3 of those. And if I'm at home, I'll have things next to my bed. If I'm driving, I've always got bits in the car. At work, when I was going into the office, I would have things on my desk. So all the places where I would need to have hypo treatments, I would that I knew that I would be going to. If I'm saying visiting family or friends, then I might bring a carton with me
Okay. And so both of you have said you have candy. And as you know, in the popular imagination, diabetes and candy doesn't go hand in hand. So let's get into this candy you all have. What kind is it? Is it chocolate candy? Is it sweet candy? Like, tell me about your candy pack.
So in my backpack, I have more juice. I don't keep candy in my backpack because it'll melt sometimes or it'll get like nasty. But in my bag, I do have this kind of candy. They're fruit jellies, and I got these at Trader Joe's. Four of them have 30 carbs, and they are small, sister. They're tiny. So that's why I really, and they're covered in sugar. They're so cute. Look at that.
Oh,
So it's like you could eat three or four of them, and that's 30 carbs, or you can eat two of them. That's 15 carbs. So it really depends on what are you doing right now? Are you on a run? Are you burning a lot of carbs and you need a lot of sugar? Like, what are you doing? So if I just need something quick, I might eat one of these. If I am more of in a thirsty mood, I might have my apple juice. So I just always have something in here. I also carry all kinds of diabetes supplies in here, like Kunstite, test strips, water.
So what I showed you is from like a supermarket. So they're like fizzy strawberry kind of um I don't know, lances. So there's 20 grams in four. If you have three, that's 15 grams. So you kind of know what you're having. And there's also um we have something called jelly babies. So jelly babies, they're like it sounds worse than what they are, but they they're like little sweets, and there's you can have three of them, and they're 15 grams of carbs, and they work.
okay. Thank you. And now let's talk about the emergency. When I was diagnosed, I learned about hypoglycemia from a very kind nurse, Nurse Pat. I always talk about her. I wish our paths would cross again someday because she was very instrumental. She was an older Black woman and she just sat down. She taught me how to give myself injections, which no other nurse did. And then she talked to me about hypoglycemia. She said, I want you to always keep a glass of juice by your bed. And some nights you might not need it. But on the night that you do, you're going to be so thankful that it was there. And I just remember like getting out of the hospital and not needing the juice. But the night I did, her words came back to me, and just what a hypo felt like. I was shaking, sweating. I I always describe it as I felt like I was running into the arms of death, and that that apple juice was the thing that was going to save me. So those are like extreme cases, right? And I think it's important for us to talk about being prepared in emergency cases.
So a few years ago, before COVID, I was still going into the office every day to work. And every day I had like a habit of starting like my day at the bar downstairs where they serve coffee and they have like pastries and stuff. And so I get myself a cup of coffee and a blueberry muffin. And I went upstairs to like start my day, and I tested my sugar. My blood sugar was like 185. And so I, took a good amount of insulin. I took like 7 units of insulin. And I don't think that but 10 minutes went by, maybe 11. And the last thing I remember is I turned around in my cubicle and I felt like there was an earthquake. Like that's what it felt like. That's what I'm not sure what other people's fainting or seizure experiences are like, but when I turned around, it really felt like the whole room was kind of moving, and that's all I remember before I woke up in the hospital. So I had to be told this story from my coworkers, but later on, I was told that I did in fact have a seizure in my cubicle. I took the meter that I was using was not giving me an accurate blood sugar reading, is what the paramedics told my coworkers, and that I should discontinue using that meter. From there, I was told that basically I took way too much insulin and it hit my body way too fast, and my body freaked out. And that was really the only explanation that I was given, because to me, taking insulin and then having a seizure 10 minutes later doesn't make sense. Like, your insulin hasn't had enough time to peak. So I was really confused. All I know is that I had burned off a small part of my face, but the paramedics did say that before they got there, my coworker knew exactly what to do because I had prepared everyone on my team. Like, everyone that I worked with knew that I was a type 1 diabetic who was insulin dependent on an insulin pump. They knew where my snacks were. They knew what to do exactly in the situation, basically. And in a way, I think that it did save my life, because by the time the paramedics got there, I was already starting to wake up, because my coworker had been trying to give me juice and candy and all these things. I was already starting to wake up. The paramedics still administered the glucagon shot, but I was already okay prior to going to the hospital. So I am thankful that I prepared everybody around me, and that I wasn't shy to explain my diabetes and to explain, hey, I have low blood sugar all the time, and that could happen at any moment, and it could be without warning. Like, there might not be any signs, and I might just fall out, and that happens.
I definitely could see the benefit of telling people you work with that you have diabetes. For me, I was so succumbed to diabetes stigma that I didn't want anyone at my job to know. And I ended up only telling them because in our refrigerator, I put juice in there and I put on there, this is Felicia's juice. And then someone drank my juice. And then I just went berserk on everyone and was saying, this is not just apple juice. It is my lifesaver. I have diabetes and I need it if I have a hypo in this office. And then people were like, oh, okay. So I like your approach, because people knew, but I honestly was just simply trying to keep it as a secret. And it was not really a good idea. So for those people who are not ready to let people, I would say find one person, like that one person that helped you, find one person that you can tell.
Yeah, sure. I just want to say I agree with you about finding that one person who who knows about your diabetes, because that could it could, without wanting to sound morbid, it could save your life. So it's good that at least one person knows. And I've been in that similar situation where I've not wanted to tell people, but I have told one person. So my hypo story, well, probably the worst hypo I've had is I was at my in-laws' house, and we were having dinner, and it was lasagna, and I thought there was a lot more pasta in the food than there actually was. So I completely overestimated the amount of carbs that I needed. And so that meant I gave myself more insulin than I needed. I'd say probably about half an hour, 45 minutes after finished eating. I noticed, I think I checked my levels and my blood sugar was starting to drop, and I had a lot of insulin still on board in terms of the levels that I was at, and knew it was going to be a really bad hypo. So I just went to the toilet in their house, kind of took myself out of the situation, and asked my wife to help. My father-in-law had to go to the local shop to get some Lucozade to help treat the hypo, because it was really, really bad. And I didn't pass out or anything like that, and thankfully my levels started to come up. But it was quite a fearful and scary moment for everyone, particularly my in-laws, because obviously they'd never seen me have a hypo before, and then it was one of the worst hypos that I've had, that their first experience was. So yeah, I'd say that's my worst hypo experience. I would say what I've is, obviously you should carb count correctly, but what I also and it was also a reminder as well that I can underestimate the carbs, and if I need to correct later, I can do that, and it's better to do that for me and be a bit safer than go. I think this is however many grams of carbs, because everyone cooks differently as well. So it's just about just being mindful of how much insulin I'm giving myself first. And then if I need to correct, go and correct.
I think that that's part of it, like the real world experience of hypos happening because you don't know the correct carb count.
An experience I had on an airplane. This was actually recently. Like, this was not too long ago. This was over spring break, 2021. So we decided to go to Hawaii for spring break, and we did. And on the flight there from Dallas to Hawaii is a 7 to 8 hour flight. It's a long flight. Because of COVID, they didn't have any food on the plane. And I had not, I keep saying stay ready, so you don't gotta get ready. That day, Eritrea did not stay ready. Eritrea did not get ready. Eritrea did nothing. She drove to the airport late for her flight. That's what she did. So anyway, you're running to the airport, you're trying to make it, and like Daniel said, when he's going to somewhere, you're thinking maybe they have juice there. Usually on the plane, they have juice, they have snacks. I have celiac disease, so I can't always eat everything. And so we get on the plane, and of course they have juice, and I'm having a low blood sugar. And so my husband asked the nice flight attendant for juice. And then after a while, we're like, ain't nobody handing out cookies, no snacks. So we asked, we're like, hey, are there going to be snacks given out or food? It's a long flight. Most long flights come with a meal. Actually, because of COVID, we're not going to be handing out meals. Here are some nuts. And I was just like, fam, I'm not going to make it. Like, I didn't have time to get food in the airport. If I would have gotten a salad, something, but I didn't have time. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I going to do? So the flight attendant walks by and I asked her, because I'm thinking, like, ain't no way those people in first class ain't got meals. So I'm like, hey, hi, see this pump? Yeah, kind of on insulin, need some help, a little bit of assistance. These crackers you gave me, can't eat them, have gluten. Please assist. This young lady, I wrote an email to American Airlines about it. She was so nice. She calls me to the back. She's like, give me 5 minutes. I'm going to call you to the back. But when I call you, come. And I was like, okay. She calls me in the back and she gave me her lunch and she didn't tell me about it until after I'd eaten the meal. Like, I eat the entire meal. It's gluten free. I'm like, thank you so much. How much do I owe you? Here's my card. She's like, don't worry about it. That was my food. And I was just like, what? So I guess American provides food for the flight attendants and like first class and the pilots. And so she was so worried. Basically, she was like, I'm not about to have a diabetic have a seizure on my plane. Like, that's not happening. Two things. One, you always have to stick up for yourself. Ain't nobody gonna love you like you love you. So you need to stick up for you, because if you don't stick up for you, who is going to? If you're waiting for somebody else to, you're gonna be waiting for a long time. So you gotta love yourself enough to be like, I'm not about to do me like this. And that's kind of where I was at in the plane. When I realized it was her food, I was like, what am I doing? My other comment would be, like Dan said, you can always correct.
So I'd say probably my real world experience is, I'd say it's different. It's more about little things that I do to adapt. So just for example, obviously in the UK, if I'm needing to travel to use the motorway, so the freeway, I will only use that as a last resort, unless I'm traveling really far and I have to use it. And the reason for that is because I've got this fear in the back of my mind. What if I get stuck there for 4 hours and I have a hypo and I run out of hypo treatment? Whereas I know if I take other routes, there'll be shops, there'll be places to stop along the way. And it's just small things like that, which I was explaining it to a family member before, and they were quite shocked by that. But I'm like, but it's small things like that where I feel that I need to keep myself safe, that I will take the different routes rather than taking an unnecessary journey on the motorway. But if I do have to go on the motorway, the freeway, then obviously I carry a lot of hypo treatment with me, thinking worst case scenario.
In my car, I carry glucose gel. I have a preference for gel instead of tablets. They tend to taste like chalk for me, So I have been known on more than one occasion to reach over the glove box and rip this open and use that. And then when I'm traveling on flights, I like to wear this necklace. It actually has glucose gel inside, and I just put it on and I feel safe because I know that I have the glucose like right here physically on my body in a cute little way that people don't know that I have glucose.
So I'm a person with symptomless lows. So I don't get shaky all the time. I don't have the headaches. I'm not like, I feel low, I feel low, I feel low. That doesn't happen to me. Once in a while it will, where I'm like so low that I'm shaking and sweating, but I don't have that because I've been diabetic for so long. But for me, I've noticed, because like you, I started thinking like, hey, why am I not shaky and dizzy and sweaty? Like, I need my body to give me those alarms so that I can realize. I started to do a few things. After I eat or after I bolus, I always try to remember to look at my pump within 2 hours. Like, oh, look, it's 4:30. Let me check again in 2 hours. Just glance at it so that I know where I'm at, or like in an hour. Just try to remember to glance. And then my other thing is I've noticed that when I'm low, even if I don't have the shakes or if I don't have like the bad feeling, I can't form a thought. I can't. I cannot form a thought. I also do this thing to my husband says I just say the same word over and over again. I'll be like, I, and I'm like trying to formulate that thought. I'm trying to give you that sentence of I am low, but I can't. So I would say that those are my symptoms now. It's very much mental because I don't have so much the physical symptoms. I could be on a run and like I'm sweating because I'm running. And then suddenly I'm like, wait, I'm low. And I'll look at my phone and I'm 43, 2 arrows down, and I didn't even see it coming. So that does happen to me frequently. And again, that's why I keep stuff on me at all times, because you never know. And then where to find me, I would say you can find me at Diabetics Doing Things on Instagram, and also find me at Eritrea with 3 A's, ERITREAAA. If you're watching this and you are a type 1 diabetic who would like to be on Diabetics Doing Things, please email me, Eritrea at Diabetics Doing Things. But this was great. Thank you so much for having us, Melissa.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Daniel.
So I would say I'm probably very fortunate that I still have hypo awareness after all these years living with type 1. So just to do the conversion, 70 is about 3.8, 50 is um 2.7. So just in case you're watching and you're used to using millimoles, I use the calculator on my laptop. I'm not that good at maths. um but so yeah, I'm very fortunate that I still have hypo awareness. There's been times where it's changed in terms of what. So there are times when I would get like sweaty and a bit confused, then that would stop, and then I'd start shaking, and then that would stop, and then I'd go back to being sweaty and confused. So the symptoms have changed, but the awareness, particularly at the certain numbers, is still there. And being in the UK, I'm very, very fortunate that I have access to the Freestyle Libre, and I've got the Freestyle Libre 2. So that comes with alarms for low and high glucose levels. So I have the alarms on that which wake me up. Um, so yeah, that's I'm very fortunate in that sense with the hypo awareness. But my advice would be to anyone who's newly diagnosed is look out for what your personal symptoms are, because symptoms can be different for everyone. And also, kind of as I touched on, look out for if your symptoms change. And sometimes it might be something that you don't think is a hypo symptom, but actually it turns out to be one. And you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at T1D_Dan. The one's a digit. And then you can also listen to the Talking Type 1 podcast on your favorite podcast app. And I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to be involved. And yeah, thank you.
Well, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for being my guest today. And I hope anyone who is watching, listening, and is curious about how to treat hypoglycemia in the real world when you're living with diabetes, you are inspired and educated. Thank you. Bye.